Apparently Thieving is dead. It only lived for a couple months though. And Jagex right now thinking they cooked with this Thieving nerf. So what exactly is going on? The early game rebalance is now live. Jagex have rebalanced a bunch of skills in the early game levels from like 1 to 40. However, it seems a knock-on effect of one of these changes has messed up high-level Thieving. Before that, they've mentioned a couple changes to their current plans of updates. The combat changes currently in the beta that you can play if you want are being pushed back to the start of March. That gives them more time to implement the feedback they've gotten. They also talk about the cosmetic changes and regrounding items project that they posted a blog on recently. And they say that while there are some changes they could make easily, like for example reshading the color of elite skilling outfits to better match the skill specific colors, they understand that maybe we want more quality, and so they've decided to push back the update until an undetermined date so they can properly implement the graphics and changes that the players have been giving them in feedback. The general sentiment seemed to be that it was a rushed update and that it should have more time, so they've decided to bundle the first batch into the second batch of cosmetic changes that they plan to do throughout this year. No release date yet for that though, so make sure to subscribe and I will make a video on it once it comes out. So no cosmetic changes will be happening on the 23rd of February after all. That means that even the items that they plan to remove will stay in game. They also have a bit here saying that knock-on effects like this change may end up affecting future content updates and they may end up getting pushed back a little bit as well. If more work than expected needs to be done, then other delays might happen, so just have to keep that in mind. Generally, I think it's a good idea that they're spending a bit more time on the elite skilling outfits because it is outfits that people will be seeing a lot of anyway. There's also some social media comments about various things people have been talking about. I'll go through those as well because they might be interesting for you guys. Mod Anvil talks a little bit about the Wicked Hood's functionality and why they're not planning on adding it into the game through other methods. Effectively, Wicked Hood can teleport you to a rune crafting altar a couple times per day, or if you have a microtransaction item, you can recharge it with that. Realistically, you don't need to move the teleports anywhere because there are already teleport tablets you can purchase through RuneSpan points. So if they made RuneSpan less annoying to do, I think you could just get the ones you want from there. I feel like RuneSpan is overdue for an update anyway, maybe make it a little bit more laid back and AFK. At the moment, it's in a weird position where it's kind of laid back, but also you have to pay attention to it a lot. They're also questioning if rune crafting should only be teleport to altar and teleport to bank, teleport to altar, teleport to bank. Like, is it maybe a good thing that you have to run to the altars? I mean, they're not planning on removing the abyss, so that's always going to be there. This is an ongoing discussion, obviously. They don't have a plan yet for it, but it's something that they're talking about. There's also a comment here saying that, well, the Wicked Hood teleports were being used by Clue Scroll players to teleport around the world more easily. Mod Anvil says that's a niche use that was never intended to be a use case for the Wicked Hood, so that's not something that they're planning to reintroduce for skillers, and frankly, there's so many teleports around the world anyway. From the sound of the comment, it doesn't sound like Wicked Hood teleports are being reintroduced anywhere, and I get that clue scrollers don't want to have tons of teleport tablets from the RuneSpan shop filling up their inventory to use for teleports. They also talked a little bit about adding the old school polling system to RuneScape 3, and they basically say that it's not something they really want to do because one, people already are saying that RuneScape is turning into old school, and it doesn't sound like they are saying that in a good way. But also they stress that RuneScape should find its own identity, not just copy old school's thing. Polling works really good on old school, they say, but it won't necessarily work that well on RuneScape, at least for now. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe they will add a polling system to RuneScape 3 as well, but it's not currently the plan. There was a comment about the 110 hunter skill increase, and how the resources from that will tie into crafting and then potentially creating new range armor, maybe magic armor too. There was a small discussion about the marketplace in which if you have parts of an item set, should you get a discount when purchasing that set in the marketplace? And generally, that is what Jagex want to do, but currently they say the marketplace is full of spaghetti code and it's not that easy to do. I agree with the sentiment that I wouldn't buy something for full price if I already had parts of the set myself. I would just not buy it. And I do have a couple outfits like that are in the marketplace right now where I'm missing like the gloves and boots perhaps. And I'm definitely not buying those for full price when I have most of the outfit already. So that's a change I would like to see. They don't have an ETA on when that would happen or change, but it is a change that I would like. Mod Luma talks a little bit about the ungodly amount of time they've been adding lots of examines to the new area expansion that's coming this year. So she hopes that we will have fun looking for all of those examines and fun little dialogue pieces. Jmod Anvil talked a little bit about the mobile experience for the website. Currently, it's not optimal and there are things that are a little bit difficult to navigate. They say it's something that they would like to change again, but they don't know when that would go through. So what is the early game rebalance actually about? And how did it kill thieving? That's what we need to find out. Well, let's start with agility first. The agility changes are very quick and easy. They've increased a bunch of experience rates on different courses. They've also lowered some requirements for shortcuts. And finally, they've completely removed experience from a couple shortcuts that were being used for training methods. They now give 1 experience instead of whatever they were giving before to emphasize that you should be using the agility courses, not the random shortcuts, which is fair. I think that makes sense. Hunter has had some big changes, massive increases to catch rate for early game items like birds. Before, it was quite difficult to catch birds at the early levels, but now everything has a 75% chance of being caught when you try to do it for the first time, and as you level up, that chance will only increase further. They've also increased the experience of some things. They decreased the last one a little bit because they said that level bracket felt too fast, so all of that seems fine. Kebit tracking has had its experience increased, and also you can no longer fail Kebit tracking, so that's good. Chinchampas have also been changed and now will give you multiple Chinchampas per catch. This ties into ammo changes coming with the combat update, so now you can look at 1 to 6 Chinchampas every time you capture some Chinchampas. And you'll get even more if you have 70 agility or 78 agility for red Chinchampas. And I imagine when black Chinchampas release later this year, they will also work the same way as these. You're gonna be swimming in Chinchampas, guys. So whirligigs then. Massive nerfs to whirligig experience. They've also increased the plain and the dazzling one up to level 16 and 20, up from 1. I talked about whirligigs a bit in the balance blog video I did. You could get well over 1 million experience doing some of these whirligigs, and it was so unbalanced compared to everything else in the hunter skill. So it's good that they're reducing those. I went over to whirligigs myself for a little bit to test them out, and they feel fantastic now. If you accidentally click somewhere in the water, you don't go running off, your character just stands still. You can still run around the sandbanks, you can interact with the flowers if you want to, fill up the baskets, you can do everything you'd want to do while hunting. The whirligig store also had some changes to its rewards, generally some nerfs there as well. The big nerf though was the chained experience has been reduced from 100 to 25% of the base experience. Though you'll notice up here that the base catch XP has increased a little bit on a lot of them. So when I tried them out now with the update, I was getting about 450,000 experience, and that is very close, if not the same as turtles. That's probably a good place to have them at, and once the 110 hunting update comes out later this year, I'm sure we'll see new methods with more experience as well. Thieving is next, but I'm going to skip that quickly because I have a lot to say about that one. So we're going to go straight to prayer. So prayer had some good changes and some weird changes. Let's talk about those. Good change was that all surface altars now give 50% more experience when you offer bones and ashes to them. The Wilderness Chaos Altar has also had some changes. It now has a base 50% increase like all overworld altars, and then it increases by 50% every time you complete a Wilderness Diary set. So once you've done all the Wilderness Diaries, you'll have a 250% altar. And this is a little bit lower than before. I believe it was 350 before. But I am a lot happier with this method of doing it rather than requiring a demonic skull, which opts you into PvP. I think that thing should be phased out personally. So yeah, I'm happy with this change. The thing I'm a little bit confused about though is why was the Fort 4 and 3 altar so massively nerfed? This thing used to be 300%, now it's 200%. The proposed changes were 250, so they've reduced it by 100 for some reason. It requires 90 construction to make. Why is it so bad all of a sudden? Not only that, but this was the community altar. Like, you'd go there, you could talk to people who were training prayer at the same time. Everyone was working together to fill up the burners on each side of the altar. Why would you change this so massively down when it has such a high requirement? Like, the first tier of altar was 200 before. Now tier 3 has the same experience as the tier 1 did before, whereas tier 1 now has 100, which is only slightly more than the base altars everywhere. Tier 2 is 150 and then 200 for the tier 3 one. And it has such a high construction requirement, that's why I'm confused by this one. Now they've also gone ahead and nerfed the gilded altar and player-owned houses. That one was 350 before. Now it's 150, and each burner will add an additional 50. So you can get that that went up to 250%, which means that all altars have been reduced by 100% experience. 1/3 of the experience you were getting before has been deleted. So as you can see here, it went up to 3.5 before, but that doesn't exist anymore. The highest you can get now is 2.5 from the Gilded Altar. I would say that you're still probably better off going to the Fort 4 and 3 altar, because it's such a convenient location. There's a bank right next to the prayer altar there. You don't have to teleport or leave the house or anything. I wonder why they felt the need to reduce that so much, because even in old school, it's 350%. If you were doing Searing Ashes, you've basically lost 200 experience per ash just from not doing it before this update. So yeah, that was a strange one. They didn't really talk much about that, and frankly, nobody in the community has talked about it either. The thieving changes have completely overshadowed all of the discussion. I would say that Cleansing Crystals is probably still my favorite. If you have access to Prifdiness at 75 prayer, you can do these ones. They give about 300,000 experience an hour. They're very laid back. You just buy a bunch of crystals and then you can just stand there and cleanse them. You don't have to do much. So yeah, it was weird with those altar changes. I'm not quite sure I followed the thought process on those ones. Not much has changed for fishing. They've decreased the catch rate of shrimp and crayfish because those were unproportionately high compared to the rest of the fish. Beehives and honeycombs for farming have had a small change where the flowers now have specific level requirements when they are added to the beehives, and the experience now scales with whatever flower it is as well. Herb seeds have been added to a lot of low-level monster drop tables so that it's easier for low-level players to find herb seeds and grow their herbs. Divination has had its general experience increased and success rate increased. This covers the level 1 to 40 brackets, so anything past that hasn't changed. And then you get more energy now from everything 1 to 44. Get an average of 1.5 energy, up from 1 from level 1 to 44. And then at 45 to 75, you get 2.5 now instead of 2. You just get like an average of slightly more energy. And then 75 plus has not been changed. A whole bunch of low-level salvage has been removed, and I believe stone spirits as well, from all of these creatures and monsters, and it's been replaced with low-level armor, so bronze, iron, steel, mithril. And if you're using a spring cleaner, you can also disassemble these armor items when they drop into bars. But I guess you probably wouldn't want to use your springs on that because I don't think it's very efficient cost-wise. Silver stalls now have a small chance of giving stone spirits and also silver ore. Ham members have also had, I think, their stone spirits and salvage removed, and now they give bronze daggers, bronze pickaxes, and generally the stuff you'd see in old school now instead of the salvage and that. So Cook's Assistant and Sheep Shearer saw some changes, effectively changing them back to their 2009 state the same way they are in old school, where you can hand in a normal egg, normal milk, and normal flour to finish the quest. I'd say this change was made because the quest is so similar to the one in old school that people were expecting it to play the same way as old school if they were doing it, and also if a new player found an egg, it wouldn't work to give it in for the quest. I shared a lot of my thoughts on this in the early game rebalance blog video I did, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but I think these are good changes. Sheep Shearer now requires white wool instead of black wool. The crafting experience has also been doubled when completing the quest. There's a couple combat changes in Lumbridge. Giant rats have had their combat level reduced, their health has been reduced, their max hit has been reduced, same for spiders, frogs, and cows. So with all the other stuff out of the way, we can focus on thieving, and what the hell happened to thieving? So with the early game rebalance to thieving, they fundamentally changed the way the pickpocketing works, and it has had knock-on effects into the end game of thieving. What they've done for pickpocketing is essentially given every single target a 75% success rate base chance. And then every level you gain past the requirement will also additionally increase your success rate for the previous targets. There's also some behind the scenes convoluted stuff of you get a 10% level boost when you just start pickpocketing, mainly to give you more pickpockets before you would fail. I'm not going to go into the details of that. You can read the blog if you want to hear the nitty-gritty details. Because of these early game changes, pickpocketing changes have also been added to mid and high level content. Prif Elves and Eastern Lands residents have a larger and longer boost, so that they are more laid back like they were originally. Pickpocketing targets with level requirements over 100 have a 15% stat boost to reflect that you can't overlevel them as much as others. They've reduced the invisible stats from Crystal Mask from 25 down to 15, and the Lightform Prayer has been reduced from 50 to 30. The stun time has been reduced so you don't have to wait as long before you can continue pickpocketing. The stun damage has been changed from 3% plus a certain amount of your current health over to the new system where it's 3% plus a certain amount of your base health or total health. So over time, you might notice you're taking more damage than before. The Oblivious Thieving perk from Invention has been completely changed. It no longer stops you from being stunned at the cost of more damage. Instead, it gives you an additional 5 pickpockets from a fresh target. The Cheeky Monkey pet has had its effect completely removed, which I don't really mind. It was one of the very few, if only, pay-to-win pets. You had to get it through a membership package. I don't think there's any other pets other than legendary ones that have any features. I'm okay with that being removed. It was a weird niche. No other skill has a pet that boosts the efficiency of a skill, so I'm fine with that. Any effect that would evade stun damage now continues to do that, unless otherwise specified. So the Elite Thieving outfit has a chance of avoiding stuns. The Traherne exoskeleton set is a thieving set, has had its chance reduced from 25% to 10%. The Featherfinger necklace has been reduced from 21% down to 10%. And Shock Absorber has been reduced from guaranteed trigger to 10% as well. And charges from the necklace and Shock Absorber are only used when they activate. Male and female ham members are also unlocked at the same level now. So farmers have had some coins added to their loot pool, as well as lots more seeds. They've listed all the seed rates here. Go through those if you want to. I'm not going to look at those too much. Pyramid Plunder has had its Scepter of the Gods drop increased. Black Ibis is now a lot more common to get from Pyramid Plunder. Higher level rooms means higher chance of getting it. There's no longer a 2-tick delay when opening urns. You can no longer click on urns once they've been opened. And there's a new UI for Pyramid Plunder as well. The thieving chests around the world have had their mechanics upgraded, so they're more like the Vault heist chests. And the Thieving Guild doors and chests have been updated. Doors now reset instantly. Doors are now player-specific rather than world-specific. And chests respawn every 45 seconds. There's also a slight reduction in experience from those. So what do players think of these changes? Well, it's not looking great. Effectively what has happened is massive reductions to the idle time of pickpocketing at high levels. They also broke clue scrolls a little bit unintentionally. Some steps weren't working right. There's some complaints about thieving having a lot of dead clicks. If you're targeting something, it has a tendency of ignoring your clicks to stop pickpocketing, or clicking things like Seren Spirits. Sometimes even spam clicking won't stop you from pickpocketing. It was annoying before and it's so much worse now, so clearly that wasn't changed. I think that's a problem with the way that auto pickpocketing was coded. It seems to keep applying itself and it overrides your movement clicks for some reason. Definitely a bug that they need to look into. A lot of players were used to 5 to 15 minutes of AFK time while pickpocketing as well, and that was heavily reduced. We're going to be getting into that. So before the changes at Menafos Market Guards, a person was able to have 100% success rate always, meaning they never stopped pickpocketing there. Now they're getting caught after 2 minutes. Apparently the aura also didn't improve the idle time at all. Best in slot gear, 2 minutes of pickpocketing time. I think this comment sums up well why people are mad. Early game rebalance, looks inside, late game thieving was killed. They massively neutered the amount of idle time you can get, but the experience rates are completely the same. They have not touched experience rates at all. The only thing that was changed for late game thieving was the amount of time you don't have to pay attention to the game. So instead of clicking 4 times an hour, you now have to click quite a lot more. Though for early game thieving, players are happy. This person's level 51 thieving. As a semi-casual player, pickpocketing is actually tolerable now. I really like the update. That was the wrong opinion to have. You're not allowed to like this update, apparently. 44% of people did not like them saying that. Frankly, I never really liked this skill, largely a part of the fact pickpocketing was always super annoying and you'd get caught every other time without advanced quest gear, etc. Now you can actually pickpocket master farmers many times in a row, sometimes 20 to 30 plus, without getting hit. To me, this update did exactly what it was set out to do. It's made early levels so much less annoying. Yeah, low-level pickpocketing was pretty miserable yesterday. I was getting caught constantly by even level 7 farmers. The low end is night and day in difference. Having around 95% fail rate at men and women at level 1 was pure evil. Pickpocketing before endgame is substantially better. That was the main objective of the update. But then you've got the high-level players who are saying thieving update is a step in the wrong direction. To start, I agree that 15 minutes of full AFK time was overpowered. No, you don't say. However, with these changes, you're now only getting 2 to 3 minutes of AFK time with a full setup without being caught. And let's be honest, pickpocketing isn't the most interesting content. And I completely agree with that. It is not interesting whatsoever. And frankly, I think you've given people whiplash with how different these idle rates are. People that were clicking 4 times an hour now suddenly have to click 30 times an hour doing the same thing. People are just so used to how laid back it was, and suddenly it was not like that at all. I'm getting less than 1 minute at Virus. So if you don't have max gear and bonuses, clearly the rates are not great, right? This person going into a whole dialogue about FOMO of needing to play the game fast to get through it before everything's nerfed. A little bit dramatic, to be honest. This master comp player is saying that it should stay 15 minutes of AFK time because mining, smithing, fishing, archaeology, etc. all have 15-minute AFK methods. All right, that's the bad faith argument because mining and fishing cap out at 200 to 300,000 experience an hour. Waterfall fishing, which is one of the more laid-back fishing methods, is 200,000 an hour. If you're looking for the 15-minute AFK experience for fishing, you can go to the city of There's a fishing spot there that doesn't move, but you're only looking at 100,000 experience an hour at 99 with boosts. Similar to mining, if you're doing primal ore really passively, you're getting 250,000 experience an hour. Light and dark animica is 100,000 to 160,000 at 99. The big one is corrupted ore, which is a really laid back one. That one gives 270,000 experience. But these are all a fraction of what thieving give. Thieving, in most cases, gives like 7 or 8 times more experience than mining does for the same amount of effort. Mining primal ore is like 3 million an hour. If you're doing 15-minute AFK fishing, you're not making any money at all. Or you could be making 3 million if you're doing it at Elder God Wars, but not through fishing, it's just through being an Elder God Wars dungeon. I'm gonna show you what the thieving rates are in a little bit, but you might have a heart attack by how high they are. Smithing, you can do it if you use massive amounts of coal. Archaeology, you can do it if you use massive amounts of porter charges, as well as having something stuck on your keyboard to hold down the space key. Frankly, no skill was technically designed to be played at a 15-minute AFK timer. It just so happens that when they extended the logout timer, some of these things happened. It was 5 minutes before on everything because that was the logout timer before. But thieving just simply cannot exist. It's pretty wild and extremely overbearing and selfish. Thieving is by far the strongest 15-minute AFK skill you can possibly do. It's no surprise that it was reduced. There's a lot of things basically saying you needed so many boosts, so I should be allowed to AFK and get 10 million coins an hour and millions of experience an hour for no effort at all because I unlocked all these things. And I feel like that's wrong. I mean, sure, you do need a lot of unlocks for these things, but that's a ridiculously unbalanced number anyway. If every AFK method is nerfed like the thieving one, I will quit. This person plays 2 to 3 accounts at the same time, so obviously they want things to be really idle because they can't pay attention to multiple things at once if everything's very active. Frankly, I have mixed opinions about playing multiple accounts anyway at the same time because you're kind of giving yourself an unfair advantage. I mean, it's one thing to play a normal account and an Iron Man at the same time, but if you have like 3 main accounts, 2 of them are farming cash for your main, this person is saying that reducing things from 15 down to 1 or 2 minutes would massively damage their way of playing. The thieving rework is a mess. I think this is an interesting idea personally. Why not add a stamina meter like mining has, so your pickpocketing slows down massively if you don't interact with the game for a little bit? A lot of people have been saying that Crystal Mask should just provide 5 minutes of AFK time while pickpocketing, and that is generally how a lot of situations have been up until this point. And like this person says, 15 minutes of AFK for millions of experience and gold per hour is not healthy gameplay, and that's not really been addressed yet. I mean, they've changed the idle timer, but they haven't addressed the experience or the coins yet. This one was a bit weird though. Old school RuneScape devs understand it's an idle game, an active game. Why can't RuneScape 3 devs? The idle time in old school is about 30 to 60 seconds. People want 15 minutes of AFK time here. I don't feel like you can draw this comparison. First comment here as well by CheapUpPod. This is not a very good angle. If something is AFK in old school, it's slow as fuck. And even then, training is way less AFK overall. It generally is. There are some ways to get extended AFK time, for example, through Nightmare Zone, but generally speaking, there's not a whole lot of AFK methods. I mean, you've got Shooting Stars is like 7 minutes of AFK time, but there's very few methods and they're very bad experience. So I did a test to see if Reddit would be willing to get reduced experience rates from thieving. After the changes today, I ran around to a bunch of popular pickpocketing locations and tested the general AFKness and XP rates as well as the XP from vaults. I had all the best item buffs, and I went through a whole bunch of popular thieving targets, and as well as the vaults at the bottom here. Keep in mind, all of these methods were at least 5 minutes of AFK time before this change. you could AFK for 5 minutes at a time and get 1.7 million experience. A very popular one was Archaeology Professor. That one gives 1.4 million experience. And in some of these cases, you could AFK there for 15 minutes at a time and get these experience rates. Now, isn't that a little bit intense? Keep in mind, we just decreased Whirligigs and Hunter because they were giving too much experience. They were giving 1.4 million experience. And you had to be super active to get that experience rate. Why is it okay for Thieving to have that amount with 15 minutes of AFK time? That's insane. Whirligigs now cap out at around 450 to 500. That's around level 83 with Thieving. So that you can see the lower ones here, they're generally like 4 minutes of AFK time before you get caught. Then at Knights of Ardoin, it goes down by 30 seconds, goes down by another 30 seconds at Wizard Tower Mages. They're about the same as Paladins. Craftiness Elves are a little bit slower again. And then you lose another 30 seconds at Crooksquall Knights. But of course, the experience goes up massively, which is weird because Prif Elves range from 90 to 98, whereas Crooksquall Knights at 20 levels lower have this rate, which is kind of strange. I have been told that when you're at 83, you have a very low chance of succeeding at Crooksquall Knights, so the experience isn't that good. But the experience for them scales really weirdly, doesn't it, with your success chance. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, at level 90, Keldagrim traders come in with a 1.1 million experience. Why are they doubling the experience? And it seems like everything past 99 has used Keldagrim traders as a baseline, and they all had to be better than Keldagrim traders rather than rebalancing those to actually make sense in the graph. Now, Keldagrim traders blew my mind with how high they are compared to every other pickpocketing target. So Virelord consumers give a whopping 1.7 million experience an hour, and this is AFK pickpocketing we're talking about. Surely there's no other skill in this game you can AFK this hard and get this much experience from. This seems broken to me beyond belief, especially when you take into account that the vaults, the active training method, is either lower or the same as the AFK methods. Now, my vault time for the first one was a little bit slow. I've been told you can get up to 2 million or 2.5 million even from doing that, which is really good. I don't think the vault experience needs to change because if you get really good at the vaults, you'll get really good experience. And they are generally pretty good experience even if you're not doing them that fast, as you can tell. Asuran Arsenal being the Dragonkin one and then the Desert one. So the Dragonkin one, I got 1.8. I was relatively happy with that time, but I was told that 10 minutes is quite possible. And that shoots it up to like 2 point something as well. So we're looking at like 2 million experience an hour from the vaults. But at this point still, you're barely getting more doing the vaults, where you're paying full attention all the time, than you are from these AFK targets that you don't have to pay attention to at all. I was seeing a lot of Reddit posts about people being okay with lower experience rates as long as they could AFK. So to put this to the test and to see if Reddit actually would put their money where their mouth is, and they kind of did, I posted an XP rebalanced pickpocketing table where I've essentially nerfed most of the methods in the similar fashion to Whirligigs, with an intent of keeping vaults at around 2 or 3 times faster, maybe even 4 times faster in some cases. This has been dropping ever since I posted it, from 100 down to 76% now. People are more happy with it than unhappy with it, but you can tell there's about 25% of people who just want easy experience for no effort whatsoever. I based the experience rates on the level of the creature rather than weird quirks like the Crooksquall Knights got a massive drop. The weirdest thing with Crooksquall Knights though is that they were actually 1 million experience an hour. They were the same as Keldagrim traders on release, but Jagex thought it was too strong, so they reduced the knights, but kept the traders the same. I've increased Prifdinous Elves because I felt like it was weird they were 90 to 99, but giving less experience than some higher level stuff, especially dwarf traders. I massively reduced those to make them fit into the level 90 bracket. My philosophy around the changes was similar to how sailing balanced Barracuda trials to salvaging. Generally, Barracuda trials are either 2 to 4 times stronger than salvaging, which is the AFK method of training sailing. And so the vaults are about 2 to 4 times stronger than pickpocketing. I feel like based on the lack of effort that you need for AFK thieving, these rates seem far more balanced. And then if you want to have over 1 million experience an hour, you'd go to the vaults. You'd get 1 to 2 million experience an hour doing the active training method rather than the passive one where you don't have to pay attention at all. I still feel like these experience rates are really good. If you wanted to AFK thieving at work, for example, you're still going to be getting a couple million experience every day. Here we can see some thoughts on this. Can't believe that Prif Elves were reduced from 5 minutes to 2.5. That one was a bit of a weird one, yeah. Best solution would have been to nerf XP rates Here's another suggestion for the stamina system, which I like. This person thinks everything is too slow and needs to be even faster, and a lot of people seem to think that. Apparently 1.7 million experience an hour isn't fast enough for AFK, and they want even more for the active method. I said this about whirligigs, and I'm going to say it again here. If I can't get 120 thieving in an afternoon, then it's not really fast enough yet. Bond can get a vault down to 745, so you can get a lot of experience there. You got 2.6 million an hour. I just think AFK thieving doesn't need to be this strong. Also, them saying dungeoneering is 10 million experience an hour at 120. You have to be really good at dungeoneering to get that kind of experience. Even 1.7 million XP for 2 minutes of AFK time is correct. It is. I don't know why I got downvoted for saying this. I guess it's Reddit though, so maybe someone doesn't like that was how it was. I don't know. You could 100% get close to that with archaeology professors. As an old school player who's coming back to RuneScape 3, these XP and AFK rates are insane to me, but overall skilling feels a lot better. There is a lot of quality of life stuff that is good, but yeah, these XP rates are crazy. One guy was saying he can basically AFK the vault. I can basically AFK Sepulchre too. What is your point? Maybe I should like go do some AFK Barracuda trials. Like that makes sense. They're basically AFK, right? It's like, it sounds like something an old school player would say. Old school players do not know what AFK is, because this old school video should not exist. It was posted a couple of weeks ago.
The most AFK runecrafting method you can do is the Urania altar.
Please stop calling it AFK when it's just low effort. I can't leave my computer. It's not AFK. We need to stop saying that it's AFK when it's low intensity training methods. The craziest thing is that the current experience rates were actually even better when 120 Thieving launched. They've already been nerfed once, and they're still this insanely good. Here one player says, realistically, there's no way active methods can reasonably compete with 500k. That's not where it is at. It's like 1.5 million, but okay. Let me correct that for you. With 1.5 million experience an hour, where you have to click 3 times an hour. The active methods would have to be an absurd 5+ million experience an hour. Here you say, but the GP you get is so much better. But frankly, like he says, I think GP kind of needs its own discussion entirely. But some people agree, 1 click every 15 minutes for 1.5 million XP and 5+ million gold doesn't have a non-combat comparison for any skill. It's insanely unbalanced from an effort and output perspective. And then they're like, I agree it's overpowered, but... And pickpocketing archaeology professors was closer to 10 million coins an hour than 5 million. Everyone loved the no-input, insanely broken methods. Wow, shocker, crazy. I like that comment. But they had to do quests to unlock this method. Surely that makes it okay for it to be overpowered, right? I do agree with this one though. I honestly don't think 4 million an hour for AFK is too overpowered. It's a lot lower than active GP making, and it is a lot lower. I think 5 million is a good place for AFK things, and that might sound crazy from an old school player's perspective. There are a lot of very laid back methods to get 5 million coins an hour, and a lot of it is just basic skilling. If you flip over to, for example, the heists and the vaults from Thieving, those average out at around 50 million coins an hour, assuming you get the uniques as well at some point. You've got plenty of bossing that gives 100 million coins an hour, so 5 million really isn't too bad, and I think that's a fine spot to have it in. 10 million might be a bit much from, archaeologist, but I mean, if it has high requirements, maybe that's fine, When you promised not to kill AFK methods, the joke was on us. We should have checked what you considered to be AFK. For the record, anything under 2 minutes is not AFK. Don't tell old school players that. They're gonna have a fit. All their AFK methods just got deleted with that one comment. So why did I wait a day with posting this video? Well, Jagex responded within a couple hours saying that to keep feedback rolling in basically, but that they were looking to change it and we're gonna post a blog in 24 hours. Basically explain what isn't working for you, share why it feels off, and suggest what you'd like to see us explore instead where possible. And people have basically described it as they want a balance between AFK and not AFK, and that is perfectly fine. I think that is a good way to look at it, and pickpocketing has always been the very AFK way of training thieving in RuneScape, ever since they introduced the more laid-back, idle pickpocketing. And a similar style to the elf pickpocketing was then later introduced to the rest of the pickpocketing targets. So you've got heists, which are very active, great experience, great rewards. Safe cracking is what I would call low intensity training method. You have to pay a little bit of attention to it, but not too much. Chests are mainly done for the loot, I would say, and then you've got pickpocketing for the AFK training method. And so I get why people are upset. You went from 15 minutes of AFK time down to 2 minutes. That's a massive decrease. I personally think that 5 minutes is a good spot for pickpocketing to be in. People are also a little bit upset about the random fail chance. It feels inconsistent. You never know when you're going to get caught. It could be 2 minutes, it could be 1.5 minutes, it could be 2.5 minutes. Now, I will say we can't ignore the fact that Alt 1 exists. Alt 1 is a RuneLite-like software. Basically reads your screen and gives your information. It can ping you when you stop training, for example. It can notify you either through sound or through a little icon on your mouse. You can fetch wiki information on it. You've got an XP meter for it. You've got AFK Warden, which lets you know when you're idle. You can even watch YouTube and streams on it. And it just overlays across your RuneScape game. So you can use that to get around the inconsistent feeling. But I do agree that through Crystal Mask at 5 minutes, I think 5 minutes is the baseline where you would want AFK Thieving to be at. My big pet peeve is basically pickpocketing locking you into the target and not being able to click off of the target. That's the biggest thing I would like them to change. Some people are saying they miss Seren Spirits and Divine Blessing sometimes because they click on them constantly, but they can't seem to get them triggered. Super glue auto pickpocketing. I really do appreciate in RuneScape that you can choose whether you want to be active or idle, and I think that both have a place. I don't think we should remove all the AFK methods, because I personally really like the AFK methods as well. I'm not sitting there sweating for my experience. Like I like to lay back, maybe watch some YouTube, and just have some RuneScape in the background, you know? So I may laugh at some comments, and I feel like some people are a bit over dramatic when they make these comments, but I do generally agree that I do like a laid back experience at times. I do agree with the intention behind their words. With that said, I do really enjoy heists. I really like the vaults. I think they're really cool gameplay. So yeah, generally there was a lot of comments for Jagex to go through, and they have responded. So on Monday, we released changes as part of the Thieving rebalance, and since then we've been closely reviewing your feedback. Consistent player feedback is that high-level pickpocketing now feels more unpredictable than intended, particularly for players who engage with it in a more laid-back way to train thieving. And while the moment-to-moment XP and GP is important, high-level unlocks should feel meaningful, and when they don't, it's a clear sign that we need to reassess our approach. And that's exactly what they've done. So what are they doing with this? Here are some pain points. Pickpocketing feels random, AFK play is interrupted without a clear warning, high-level gear and buffs do not feel meaningful, it's unclear how the success chance scales with level or setup. What they're looking to do is increase the amount of time when pickpocketing is guaranteed before you start having a chance to fail. And we're looking at a baseline of AFK time of 4 to 6 minutes, which is good. That's a good range. This aligns naturally with the buffs like Crystal Mask. And then for those who invest further into levels, gear, and additional boosts, this window can be extended even further. The goal here is to move pickpocketing away from frustrating semi-AFK experience where you're forced to constantly watch the screen. So we aim to make the system more clear, more readable, and more rewarding as you level up. So here are the proposed changes. They are significantly extending the guaranteed safe period before any chance of failure begins, roughly doubling it to 2.5 times the current baseline, slow down how quickly failure chance increases once it does apply, and bring the baseline AFK times closer to 4 to 6 minutes. There are also some additional changes they plan to do. Sticky Fingers Archaeology Relic, so it no longer causes players to fail significantly faster. Add in some clear in-game messages when an NPC starts to suspect you of pickpocketing. That way the risk of failing becomes more visible. This also lets you avoid being stunned completely if you swap to a different target, which is a cool feature. A cool change that I really like is when refreshing Crystal Mask, the pickpocketing counter will now reset when you re-engage the same NPC. So you can use Crystal Mask to reset your success chance at pickpocketing. These changes are designed to support predictable AFK gameplay rather than undermine it. They're also going to be talking a little bit about how they plan to change XP and GP adjustments with these changes. They go into some details here about how the pickpocketing works. You can read that yourself if you want to. Effectively, with the changes on Monday, the success chance would drop by 1% every additional pickpocket, but now they're changing it to 0.33, so it should degrade slower. They also want to stress that longer AFK sessions is something that you will unlock as you progress your gear and level setups. So obviously, when you just unlock something, you will have less AFK time than after you've unlocked some extra benefits. So here they've got an example table of how long you'd be able to idle at different things. We've got Elves at level 85 Thieving. You only get about 30 seconds of AFK time when you've just unlocked them and no other buffs. But if you add Crystal Mask, you'd be looking at a 2-minute AFK time. If you include Lightform into that, you're getting it 4 minutes, even with no other buffs. Throw in the Ardoin Cloak and you can get 5 minutes of idle time. And then Legendary 5-Finger Aura, you'd increase that by another 2 minutes. So effectively, at base level, when you just unlocked Elves, if you have all these things, you could just be standing there for 7 minutes. And then at the same target, the elves, at 120 thieving, you're looking at a base rate of 4 minutes, and you can push that all the way up to 11 minutes of AFK time, though you'd have to recast Crystal Mask at 5 minutes, so it doesn't really matter at that point. But same goes for Minifight Marketeer at 104 thieving, it starts at 52 seconds. You can see that Crystal Mask helps a lot, and Lightform also does help a lot to get this closer to 5 minutes. And that's generally the trend here. All the way up to Fairy Traders at 120, you can get those up to 8 minutes of AFK time, which is great. So if you have lots of unlocks, you're effectively getting more than 5 minutes of AFK time. You're looking at like 8 minutes or more. Note that the above example does not include the Camouflage outfit, which is the Thieving Master outfit, and the Ring of Vitur, or the Magpie Summoning Familiar, which also boosts your AFK time. So Sticky Finger Relic from Archaeology is something they're looking to change. At the moment, it will increase the auto pickpocketing speed by 50%, but also reduce your experience by 33%. So in a lot of cases, it wasn't worth using if the target was moving around. You also were getting less experience, but a little bit more loot when using it. But since the thieving changes now, it means that you're getting caught faster because you're pickpocketing faster. So they're looking to change that. So they want to change it so you still get caught faster than if you're not using it, but it should increase your experience more. Basically, they want to improve it a little bit, so it's worth using. Here they talk a little bit about the balancing of XP and loot. Low activity methods, we'd normally want them to give less experience and GP. With high activity methods, we'd normally want them to give more XP and GP, and that makes sense. Currently for thieving, this is how all the methods compare to each other for active vs GP vs XP. Thieving pickpocketing is specifically what they're talking about here. You get quite high experience, quite high profitability, and very AFK. After Monday's changes, the AFK time has drastically reduced, as you can tell, but nothing else has changed. It's still very profitable and very high experience. What they're looking to do is bring up the AFK higher, but not as high as before, looking to reduce the XP significantly, and also decrease the profitability significantly. Not as significantly as the initial AFK time changes, but they want to reduce it a bit. As a result of maintaining the AFK ability of pickpocketing, we will be looking to reduce some of the XP and GP. They're currently looking to reduce the experience of pickpocketing by around 30%, and also decrease the loot by about 30%. So if you're getting 10 million, you'd be getting 7 million instead. So Virelord consumers are 1.7, they'd be reduced down to 1.2 million. And at that point, if you're doing vaults very efficiently, they're about half the speed of vaults, and I think that that's probably a good place for them to be. They're looking to split this rebalance into 2 sections though, so they're focusing on AFK and XP rebalance first. The XP rates will be adjusted and the AFK time will be brought back up again, and then afterwards, in a different update, they will rebalance the profitability of the targets and reduce that by 30%, like they said. Here they also want to stress for anybody who is worried about AFK being removed from the game, and it's not. It is just being rebalanced to not be overpowered. That's why the thieving things were overpowered. That's why it's being rebalanced. They don't want to remove full AFK-ness, maybe reduce it to 5 minutes, but that's still really good. I don't necessarily think anything needs to be 15 minutes of AFK time. You're basically not playing the game at that point. But 5 minutes seems perfectly fine. And here they say skills should offer a good range of activity methods, including both high intensity and low intensity AFK methods. Activity should be appropriately balanced according to intensity and effort, so the XP rates and GP should be based around how much effort you put into it. AFK gameplay should be predictable and consistent, so it doesn't cause frustration and feel like you have to keep looking at the screen all the time. A big one here is level ups and unlocks should meaningfully increase your proficiency within activities, and skills should have unique identities. What works good for one skill doesn't necessarily have to be the same for a different one. I also want to say thank you for all the feedback everyone's written up and for all the thoughts and opinions. As we set RuneScape on the right path, we'll likely encounter a few missteps along the way. Your feedback has helped us focus on the flaws in our original approach, and we hope that the upcoming changes will feel a lot healthier to the thieving experience you are looking for. Do give us feedback on what you think of these changes. So what do people think of this blog? I would say it's a resounding success. Not only did Jagex kill thieving, but they also revived it within a week. Thank you for listening to our feedback and quickly adjusting based on that. Communication was top notch and everything I wanted from the change. 30% nerf to golden XP, but we can AFK 5 to 10 minutes is more than appropriate for being semi-AFK. One thing you might be wondering is they did mention the thieving aura, and I believe they are trying to incorporate that into the game outside of the aura system. I've said this in a few posts, but thank you for all the transparency and listening. Only around 24 hours of the dislike update and we already have official post about fixing it. I love the details of the blog, from the explanation to the tables to the triangle charts and how quickly it was able to come out. Keep it coming. Bravo, Jagex. This is exactly how the rest of the year should be done. Yeah, here's a comment I read. Why are you balancing things considering the aura? We have an aura blog coming soon. In short, we're moving 5-finger discount aura to the Thieving Guild for unlocks. Not exactly sure on the details yet on that one, but that's the idea. Kudos for taking on the feedback. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. 4 to 8 minutes is a good AFK sweet spot. What I really like is that every buff matters. Soul update is I guess you can't please everyone. Calling a walk back, then changing while still making thieving shit. Okay. The people who are still upset are generally getting piled on by other people saying it's a good change though. So, you know, it's looking good. I do sort of agree with this comment that Oblivious perk is kind of weak now. I feel like it could have been a little bit stronger. And so with that, the Doomsayers were put to rest. And I think once they've got the thieving changes down, we've got a good early game rebalance here that ended up rebalancing most of the thieving skill in the process. But, you know, that happens sometimes, I guess. Mainly because they changed a core functionality in the thieving skill. I think if they just rebalanced the early game thieving with experience rates, then this whole thing wouldn't have happened. But also, thieving would have still felt bad even if they increased the experience rate at lower levels. Now they've actually made thieving feel good to do in the early game. So instead of just band-aid fixing it like they could have done with an XP change, they fundamentally changed how the system works to make it feel better to use. And I think that is exactly what the Road to Restoration is all about. It's about making the game feel better and flow better, removing pain points like they've done here. I really like to see it. I really like what they've done here. I'm really happy with the changes. I think that overall thieving balance will be better once they've gotten all these changes into the game. Let me know what you think in the comments.